This is the cleanest my desk setup has ever looked. And this is the messiest. I'm building this entire setup from scratch. That means no pre-made furniture, all custom with built-in tech. I've always looked at desk setups on YouTube and wanted to build one for myself. This is my attempt at doing that. I use my desk for almost everything. It has to handle working from home, gaming, and an ever-growing list of hobbies. To build my dream desk setup, it needs to have 3 things: built-ins for maximum storage, a tech cabinet for a clean desk, and hidden storage for easy access. With my software and mechanical engineering background and a sprinkle of delusion, I'm building things I've never built before, and I'm quickly realizing I might be in over my head. Why does it do that? All right, here's some quick context. This workspace project started at the beginning of the year when I moved out of my old office, and I actually set up this temporary workspace in the living room, and this is kind of where I'll be until this whole project is done. So far, I've completely demoed the space, installed new walls, updated the flooring, and even added some fresh paint. Now, the plan is simple. We are building custom built-ins across this entire wall. For my setup, that means centering my desk in the room with cabinets all around it, so whatever I need is always within reach. To be able to pull this off, we need to build a few things into it. First, it needs to have plenty of room for me to work, so I've planned for a 10-foot wide desk. Second, a way to keep everything off of my desk. So the PC and tech I would normally put on top of my desk will be moved into a cabinet with a custom cooling system so it doesn't overheat. And finally, a way to easily access important equipment from my desk without getting up. This will include drop-down storage that will turn my desk into a type of workbench when I'm working on hobbies and then disappear when I'm done. And of course we want it to look nice, so we're going for a sleek and modern look. We've already made a ton of progress with this remodel, but we're kind of up against the clock because my temporary desk setup is taking up space in the living room where my wife relaxes and works out, and she typically has to find somewhere else to do those things while I'm working. After estimating about how long each step of this project is going to take, I told my wife I'd be out of the living room and back in my office in 3 months. All right, let's get started with the build. These are the built-ins. I wanted to show you guys what they look like in the space before I go ahead and paint them. Now, this box is going to be hung up like here. Easy, easy. Oh, this thing's freaking heavy. Okay, something like that. Hopefully you got a good look because I'm not doing that again. So something else I should mention is this room is not symmetrical. Like, this window is literally not in the center of the room. So what I've opted for is I have a very tall cabinet that goes from floor to ceiling. And it actually even protrudes a little further than the other cabinets, just to make sure it looks like super intentional so that it's not like a, what is that? I've got to get these back to the shop, paint them, install all the hardware. Then I can finally bring them back, get them installed, and then we can start on some of the cool features that are going to kind of be hidden in the project. So I'm gonna go do that. While these are getting painted, I went to go start working on building the desk, but then I realized we had a problem. About a year ago, I ordered wood from an online auction. It was supposed to have 2 types of wood, and one of them was supposed to be walnut. And mind you, all of this wood has been sitting outside for like the last 3 years. It all kind of looks the same. So I start taking some sandpaper to it to like really see what the wood is. And I go through all of the boards and none of it is walnut actually. And the problem with that is that I've planned this entire space based on the color of walnut being for the desk. And mind you, I've already painted the walls, I've replaced the flooring with this idea. And I've tried swapping in other colored woods, and it just doesn't look as great as walnut does. So I've got to figure out, can I swap it for a cheaper dark colored wood? Or
I don't know, because walnut is expensive. So I've got to figure out how I'm gonna do this with my budget already pretty much maxed and no wood. One of the major things I'm trying to solve with this new desk setup are the number of things that permanently live on my desk.
As you know, the plan is to store my PC and some of the other tech inside of the built-ins so they're off of the desk.
Now, some of you might be yelling at your monitor right now that a PC needs airflow, and don't worry, I've got an idea for that. Now, I realize you can't just shove a PC inside of a cabinet and call it good because it's going to overheat.
The way it'll work is by using computer fans to take cool air in from the lowest point of the cabinet and circulate it through the cabinet, providing fresh air to all of the tech. And then using another set of fans at the top of the cabinet to expel hot air.
I'm not totally sure how I'm going to control whether it's on or off, but if I can get this to work, this should be just one less item on my desk. Now, once we get the rest of the built-ins installed, we can actually do some more testing on this to make sure it's going to be able to handle the heat and prevent the PC from overheating.
Since the cabinets got back to the shop, they've been getting prepped and painted, but we did run into a pretty annoying issue. I made a critical mistake trying to build these doors, and that was I bought the wrong wood. I got this wood from the same auction that was missing the walnut for the desk, but this wood also had a problem and ended up having bug holes. And it's not like a couple, it's like a lot. Now, it doesn't really affect the structural integrity of the wood, like it's still fine to use. The problem is I have to fill every single bug hole before I can paint and continue with this build. So it's like hours of filling holes, and then I sand it, and then more hours of filling holes. And there's not like one or two doors, there's a lot of doors on this project. I haven't really mentioned it yet, but building the cabinet boxes took about a week longer than I planned, and now these doors have taken 2 weeks longer to build. So we're already behind schedule, and I'm going to have to find a way to make up that time. I guess that makes me 0-2 for buying wood. But on a brighter note, with these holes filled, we are able to prime the cabinet doors and finally get a first look at what the paint's going to look like on the built-ins. All right, we just finished up painting the first coat. I'll be honest, I was a little nervous about the color. I was a lot nervous about this color. And after painting the first coat, I'm starting to feel a little better. I think it's a little lighter in here than in a dark room, but I don't know, I think it looks pretty good. All that's left to do at the shop is add the finishing touches. After multiple delays and a few deadline extensions, these cabinets are finally ready to go home.
But before I can install these cabinets, we need to figure out this walnut issue. The entire design of this office was based on a walnut desktop, but the wood that I bought didn't end up being walnut. Now, after looking at a bunch of different options, things like buying a butcher block from Lowe's, or even buying cheaper wood that I can stain a similar color, I ended up finding a guy about a half an hour away from me on Facebook Marketplace that was selling walnut at a price I couldn't beat. I ended up paying literally half the price that I'm used to paying for walnut, and that means that I can actually match the original design still. So with that figured out, we can finally start installing the built-ins.
Now that we have the walnut for the desk, I've been working on building it. Now, because I'm building a 10-foot desk and the walnut I bought isn't 10 foot long, I have to cut it out and reassemble it to get it to size. Because of the way I designed this setup, it means the desk will have one side of it touching the cabinet and the other side touching the wall. Essentially, it means if we want this desk to fit, we have to cut it perfectly. Because if I cut it wrong, then it means we're going to end up with a gap on one side. So I'm really hoping that this new method I'm trying of cutting the desk is going to work, because every other time I've tried to cut something like this to size, it's never been perfect. So let's get this to the workspace and see if it fits. Oh, it's backwards. Oh, shit. Okay. Oh. Oh, jeez. Don't want to do that again. I was starting to put this desk in and I was expecting it to not fit perfectly. And I'm like halfway in and it's still fitting. So I just wanted to document this achievement if it does happen to fit first try. Come on, baby. Come on. Just fit like a glove. Let's go. Dude, I'm not sure that could be any better. Look at that. This has literally never happened to me before, and I'm honestly just happy that it's happened on this project. Now all that is left to do is add some finish to the desk to bring out that rich color and add that protective layer. Okay, now that we have the lower cabinets installed, we can actually start to build that ventilation system we talked about earlier for the tech that's going in the cabinet. Now we left off not knowing exactly how we were going to handle turning on and off the fans for the cabinet, but I found a really cool solution that I think is going to work really well. The coolest thing about this entire setup is actually this part right here. It's from a company called Cooler Guys, not sponsored. Really appreciate the fact that I didn't have to build this from scratch. It's actually pretty affordable. So this device actually allows you to plug in computer fans and you can actually set a temperature. So it's got a thermometer and you can set a temperature for the fans to turn on. So essentially I don't have to have all of these fans hooked up to my desktop and have my desktop handle when to turn it on, right? So like when my laptop is running and it's heating up the cabinet, this guy will be able to still manage it automatically. Now I've added intake fans to the back of the cabinet, which will pull air from the front of the cabinet at the lowest point. And this contraption I've been building is a housing to mount the fans to expel the hot air out of the highest point. I've also designed a spot for the controller to mount to the housing so that I can see the temperature of the cabinet from anywhere in the room. Now, this should all work in theory, but I haven't actually tested it yet. So let's do that now. To do a real test on this, we should try and create a worst case scenario, which is basically just running the PC at its maximum load. Now, when I tested this with my PC on my desk, I was seeing temperatures around the mid 70s for both my processor and my graphics card. So we've been running these renders for about 8 minutes or so, and the highest temperature I'm seeing has been around 82, but it's sticking around the 80 degrees Celsius mark. Now that's a little bit higher than what it runs at when it's just sitting on my desk, but I did just check the specs on my CPU and GPU, and really if we're staying under 85 degrees Celsius, we should be fine. And just for reference, if we didn't have the ventilation system installed in the cabinet, the CPU could reach temperatures of 90 degrees Celsius in just a few minutes. And mind you, I haven't even adjusted any of the fan curves or anything like that. So if I adjusted that, we might be able to get even better cooling. But honestly, without messing with any of that, I think we can say this cabinet works. I've now officially moved all of the stuff off of my desk into this cabinet. So now that this project is done, I can get started on a project that I've been excited about since the beginning of this build. Okay, so the next really cool feature that I'm building into my desk setup is going to solve the problem of flexibility. Whether it's hobbies or working my 9 to 5, I do a lot of things at my desk. And that typically means managing a lot of stuff on and around my desk. For photographers, maybe that's camera equipment, or for artists, that's sketchbooks and paint. But for me, it's tools and equipment that I use to build my projects, because I'm a nerd. So the stuff that I normally have sitting in a box next to my desk, I would like to have easy access to so that I don't have to get up every time. So the idea that I had was to add storage to the upper cabinets that could lower down and turn my desk into a type of workbench. And the beauty is that when I'm not working on projects, I can just stow it all away to convert it back to a desk.
Now, I'm not totally sure how I'm going to get this to work. All I know is that I want it to be able to raise and lower completely on its own without me having to physically interact with it.
At this point, I've taken some time to come up with a plan on how I'm going to build this hidden storage. Projects like this usually take a lot of time because you need 3 things all working together: electronics, code, and the mechanism. Now, there were a lot of ways to build something like this, but for this application, I decided to go with a lead screw and motor setup.
This is like what I had in mind when I first originally designed the drawer. Basic setup is I have a motor, and then I have this screw. The motor spins the screw, and then I have the drawer attached to the screw to go up and down.
Now, you would normally find a mechanism like this in a standing desk, but instead of lifting and lowering a desk, we're going to be lifting and lowering a shelf. I've got the electronics and code pretty much fleshed out, but we've run into a bit of a problem with the mechanism that I didn't even think would be a problem. And that's the sound. The way this is set up, the motor is spinning the screw and it's making this terrible screeching sound. And to add on to this problem, the speed of the drawers have me concerned. I picked a general speed for the motors to spin to do some testing, and as of right now, it takes them a full 2 minutes to raise and lower. So we literally need to double the speed of this thing without making even more noise. So we've got some work to do if we want any chance of this thing being a cool feature instead of being a complete headache every time I open and close it.
Okay guys, I got access to some new tech that isn't on the market yet, and I want to show you guys why I'm so excited about it. You know what? Let me just show you what it can do. This is an LED pad, and there are no batteries and no cables that attach to this to power the LED light. So you may be curious, how do you power a light without any of those things? All you have to do is put it over the desk. It's pretty cool. You see, a bit ago, I installed this loop under my desk that creates a power zone inside of the loop. That means I can power things like this LED as long as it stays inside of the loop. And the thing that is providing power to this LED is actually the receiver, which is actually baked into this device. And since we have a receiver that can provide power, we can really add this to any low powered device we like. And depending on your device's requirements for power, you can decide which size receiver you need to install into it. Now, this technology is created by a company called ETI, and I reached out to them as soon as I heard about this technology, and they were super kind and sent me this evaluation kit.
A mouse and keyboard actually make great candidates because they're both low powered and rarely need to leave your desk. We can add this to our keyboard and never have to worry about the battery dying again. One small note, metal and circuit boards like the one in a keyboard can mess with the power field a bit, so hiding a receiver under the board isn't super reliable. So instead we'll be placing this charging puck directly in front of it. And since the keyboard stays stationary most of the time and still has a battery in it, I have the option to just turn on the system to recharge the battery and use battery power the rest of the time. Kind of like a hybrid approach. The quickest way to add a receiver to the device would be to use a dongle version of the receiver and just plug it in directly. But for devices like a mouse, this isn't the most practical form. As of right now, they don't sell mice with receivers built in, so if I want this to work for my desk, I'll need to add a receiver to the mouse myself. And because we'll have a permanent power source, we could technically get rid of the battery for this device, which actually makes you wonder what the potential is here for creating a super light mouse. But designing a custom mouse that competes with other light mice on the market is a whole nother video.
Wireless power wasn't even on my list of things that I thought I wanted in a desk setup, but now that I have it, I'm super excited to use it. But now that we've got this wrapped up, We've got some details we need to figure out for this vertical storage.
Okay, I feel like we are finally getting somewhere.
I made a lot of adjustments and even swapped a couple of parts that I think are going to work better to allow it to move more smoothly without making all of the sounds it was previously making.
Swapping these parts did in fact fix that squeak. The other issue we were running into was how long it took to open the drawer.
Okay, so before we can get this hung on the wall, I want to figure out how long it actually takes for this drawer to open and close. I'm like really hoping we can get this to be under a minute. That would be like, I don't want to say worst case scenario. Anything over a minute kind of sucks, to be honest. Okay, that took exactly 2 minutes for it to open. Not ideal. I literally ran to the fridge and got a drink in the time that this opened. So, okay, so I've doubled the speed of this motor. So theoretically, because there's not really that much of a load on this, this should be about 60 seconds. So let's see how fast we can get this to go. All right, that's pretty good. I stopped it a little late, but I think that was 60 seconds.
I was feeling a little crazy that day, so I wanted to speed it up to see how fast we could get it to go. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and add some weight to represent a load in the drawer.
Look at that, 45 seconds. That's awesome.
Now, the only other noise we are left with is this humming of the motor while it's moving. And to mitigate that, I'm adding some foam paneling inside the cabinet to catch as much sound as we can. Because a cabinet like this kind of acts as an amplifier and makes it louder, so this should hopefully reduce the noise levels. There is still a hum when you open and close it, but since I'll only be doing that once or twice a day, I'm pretty happy with the sound level.
Hell yeah. Look at that. Okay, so my wife just left for band practice and I've got very limited time. But as you know, I basically took over her space in the living room over the last like 5 months now. And I just wanted to find a way to say thank you to her because I've basically been invading her space for where she works out, where she relaxes and reads. So my idea was to try to give her back her room and her space better than I found it. Now, while she's at band practice, I'm cleaning everything up, getting everything out, and actually setting up some new gym equipment, as well as kind of like a reading workout corner. Now I'm finally far enough in my build that I can actually start moving into the new setup, and that means I can actually move out of the space. When she got home, I thanked her for being so patient with the build and just being so supportive of what I do. And she was very excited to see her surprise.
You're so sweet.
I'm really happy I was able to do this for her, but the work on the office isn't over yet. So let's get back to it.
We are getting so close to being done with this build, and I'm wrapping up a few things here and there, but we've got one last piece of the puzzle before this build is finished. You may have noticed the topographical mural in some of the renderings. The original design of this build is very modern and very sleek, but I wanted to add something to make it a bit more visually interesting and give it a bit more personality. So before we call this build complete, we have to recreate this topographical mural on the wall, and then we can see the entire build put together.
We are seconds away from seeing the big reveal, so as I'm finishing the final details of the setup, I want to let you know that this is only the first video in a series of videos that I'm making about building my dream workspace. I have a ton of plans for unique features like hanging my monitor from the ceiling so I can use it anywhere in my office, and some automatic pocket doors. So if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more stuff just like this, then let me know by subscribing to the channel. Oh, and here's a quick reminder of where we started just 5 months ago. Okay, let's get into it. This is the exact feeling I wanted from my setup. Calm, open, zero visual noise. My work feels lighter when the surface stays clear and everything has a home. Gaming is much more relaxing when I'm not surrounded by clutter. The tech cabinet keeps my desk clean and the PC cool with any task I throw at it. And working on hobbies is simple now. Tools at arm's reach, no scavenger hunt, no mess, and everything has a place. Working on my projects here actually feels fun, focused, and organized. This build I'm working on here is for an upcoming video, and I haven't seen anything like this in a home office. So if you want to see it, make sure you're subscribed. And adding wireless power to my devices for this setup has added that extra layer of flexibility, which means less cable management and less having to worry about batteries dying. Resetting this space back to clean takes literal seconds, so the desk stays ready for whatever's next. All right, that's a wrap. Hey Siri, turn off my office.